Over the better part of a decade, Caledonia Works have modelled a healthy variety of both famous and obscure locomotives for TS Classic, with this video being focused on something at the more obscure/niche end of the spectrum. This is the London and South Western Railway L11 class 440 tender engine, and come to think of it, if an early 80s band by the name of The Motels were involved, you could refer to this locomotive as Take the L11. References to my favourite era of music aside, this video is not sponsored by CW, and I bought my copy of the L11 add-on with my own money. As an aside, I find that the locomotive's designation doesn't roll off the tongue well because of the two L sounds right next to each other. It's like trying to say the name Ella Langley. That's a country singer with a song by the name of Choosin' Texas. But first, a brief history on the L11. This class was designed by Dugald Drummond, and 40 examples were built at 9 Elms Works between 1903 and 1907. They used the same boiler as the T9 class, but had smaller driving wheels as they were intended to be mixed traffic engines. Both the T9 and L11 originally had an unusual setup with water tubes across the firebox in an attempt to increase heating surface. However, this arrangement increased maintenance costs, so it was later removed by Robert Urey, who succeeded Drummond as the LSWR's chief mechanical engineer in 1912. Throughout their working lives, the L11s ran various mainline passenger or freight services, working alongside the slightly less powerful K10 class of 1901. The L11s, or large hoppers as they were nicknamed, could be seen in places like London, Eastleigh, Salisbury, Exmouth Junction, Fratton and Bournemouth. Speaking of Fratton, I ended up visiting that station one day in real life as part of a trek to the Isle of Wight. As the years went on, the large hoppers were used on all sorts of services, but not the fastest express or heavy mainline freight. In October 1922, 15 L11s were authorised to receive superheating when they next went to Eastleigh Works for overhaul, but this plan was cancelled under Richard Maunsell as he thought that the expense wasn't justified given the locomotive's secondary duties. As a result, the L11s became one of the few Drummond designs to never be superheated. Thinking back to the T9 class, these locomotives were rebuilt with superheating and extended smoke boxes, so using a rebuilt T9, we can get a sense of what the L11 might have looked like had she been rebuilt in a similar fashion. All of the L11s survived into Southern Railway ownership upon the grouping in 1923, and were initially given the E prefix ahead of their numbers, E being short for Eastleigh. The prefix would be removed from the whole class between January 1927 and February 1928, and around the same time, the original lamp irons were replaced. By 1948, 13 L11s had been withdrawn from service, leaving 27 still on the books. The survivors retained their original 3-digit numbers throughout the entire Southern Railway era, and had 30,000 added to their numbers upon becoming part of the British Railways fleet. 9 Elms Shed still had 2 L11s allocated there for freight work in the London suburban area, while Eastleigh used some of them to haul freight to Southampton, Fawley or Andover Junction. In May 1949, 2 L11s were withdrawn, while 30171 became the last of her class to receive heavy repairs. The last instance of an L11 working on a passenger train took place in September 1950, when 30408 piloted the now preserved bullied Pacific No. 34010 Sidmouth on a morning run from Exeter to Plymouth. 30408 was soon laid up at Exmouth Junction, then sent to Eastleigh for scrap in early 1951. The last of her classmates were withdrawn in 1952, by which time only 6 were still in service, and sadly, none of the L11s have survived into preservation. The L11 was released for Train Simulator Classic on the 14th of March 2026, as the second Caledonia Works release of the year, after the Great Western Railway Saint class. This 440 is available to buy on CW's website for £20, and for anyone who is new to the world of CW, it's worth noting that they do not release their DLC on Steam, and I don't think they ever will. In any case, I picked up my copy of the L11 during CW's spring sale of April 2026, when all locomotive add-ons, except the London and South Western Railway H16, were 30% off, so I paid $33.70 NZD for the L11. As for what's included in the pack, we'll do what I always do and start with the livery selection, which is as follows. LSWR Drummond Royal Green, LSWR Uri Presto Green, a second variant of Pesto Green with Drummond-style lining, SR Maunsell Green with an E prefix on the tender, SR Maunsell Green with new lamp irons and no E prefix, 3 variants of 1939 SR Maunsell Green, SR Unlined Pre-War Malachite, SR Lined Malachite, which the L11s never carried in real life, SR Black, with either sunshine or gilt lettering, SR Post-War Unlined Malachite, BR Transitional Unlined Black, with British Railways lettering in the sunshine font, and regular BR Lined Black, which can display either no markings, gilt sans lettering, or the early crest. Much like the Fowler 4P and Stanier 4P tank engines, the tenders on the BR Lined Black L11 are scripted so that you can change the decals via the locomotive's number string in the scenario editor. As for what my favourite livery is from the L11 pack, that's a tie between LSWR Drummond Royal Green and Southern Railway Lined Malachite Green, while, to be honest, my least favourite liveries are these 1939 variants of Maunsell Green. Of course, if you like these liveries, that's fine by me. In any case, I also noticed that the later variants don't have wing plates, and the original Royal Green variant is the only one in the pack to feature burnished smokebox door details. Meanwhile, this pack includes 2 tender types, the original Drummond 6-wheeler, which holds 3,500 gallons of water, and a 4,000-gallon 8-wheel tender known as the water cart. I mainly recognise the water cart tender from its inclusion with the T9s. 8 L11s were modified as oil burners in 1946, and retained the modifications for the rest of their lives, but the oil burning variant is not included in this pack. There's also some new particle effects on the L11, and prior to this engine's release, the new effects were added to 13 older add-ons, including the GWR City class, LNER A1/1 Pacific and Highland Railway Strath class, as free updates. Subsequently, the LNER A3 Pacific has also been updated with the new particle effects. Meanwhile, the L11 makes use of SimNation's Locomotion 2.0 scripting, so she has the more advanced features like a scripted tender tank and water level, fluctuating boiler water level depending on the route gradient, realistic steam chest simulation, lump firing simulation, fire intensity synchronized with the exhaust beat, animated valve gear inside the frames, although it's a bit hard to see, and Performance Mode Pro, which makes a small but welcome improvement to the frame rates for lower-end computers. The full list of features can be found on the products listing at CW's website. Much like the LNER P1, LSWR T14, LSWR H16 and Southern Railway L1, which I've covered in previous videos, the L11 has a scripted steam reverser. This means that you'll need to switch to the F5 heads-up display to get an accurate reading of the reverser position, as the F4 HUD's reverser icon springs back to the middle whenever you move it. On newer CW locomotives, as in the Highland Railway Strath class and all subsequent add-ons, you have to hold down the reverser lock by pressing E as you're moving the reverser, then release the E key to engage the lock. This requirement to hold down the lock while you're moving the reverser is not present on locomotives that were released prior to the Strath. The L11 doesn't come with any rolling stock, so if you're brand new to TS and happen to acquire this pack as one of your first add-ons, you'll also need at least one rolling stock pack to use alongside the locomotive. One pack that I would recommend is the London and South Western Railway Carriage Set 1, made by Matrix Trains, and this is available on MT's Ko-fi store. There's a text file included with the L11 download that shows you the full list of packs required for the locomotive's quick drive consists. As far as I can tell, the sound set on the large hopper is made up with recordings from the M7 class 044 tank, which is another CW product. Regardless of whether or not they're actually M7 sounds, I can understand why they were used on the L11, since Chris or anyone with which he works couldn't possibly record sounds from an actual L11 in real life. To be honest, the whistle is the only aspect of the sound set of which I'm not much of a fan, but I have no ill will towards anyone who does like the sound of this locomotive's whistle. The manual says that this engine's ideal fire mass is 1,500 to 1,515 pounds, but in my experience, when the engine's not working hard, she seems perfectly happy with the fire mass set around 1,190 to 1,200 pounds. Here's another thing to note about the driving experience on the large hopper. I would advise against opening the regulator too wide, as in no more than around 30 to 40%, when you're trying to start with a heavy train, as this locomotive has a tendency to wheel slip at low speeds. I would highly recommend using the sander whenever you drive the L11, as it does a good job at preventing wheel slip. From an authenticity perspective, at least two TS Classic routes are suitable for the L11. The routes in question are Dorset Coast and West of England Main Line from Golden Age developments. You could also run these locomotives on Great Western Levels 1902, that's another GAD route, and they're not far off from the time period on the aforementioned route. In the alternate reality in which GW Levels 1902 is set, and according to the route's description on GAD's website, LSWR locomotives would venture onto the lines to Highbridge and Willerton, even though said lines were managed by the Great Western Railway. During a test run for this video, I found that the L11 can reach an absolute top speed of 68.5 miles per hour on level track. In an earlier test run, I found that, with the fuel maintained at the right levels, a large hopper can get up to at least 45 miles per hour and maintain that speed on a 1 in 200 uphill grade with the standard LSWR Wagon Pack 1 quick drive consist, but she'll gradually lose speed with that same consist on a 1 in 80 uphill grade. In closing, I'm generally happy with the London and South Western Railway L11, although the wheel slip tendency upon starting away from stationary still catches me off guard sometimes. I don't know much about the LSWR, but it is still interesting to see more locomotives from that company come to TS. And if you happen to be interested in the aforementioned company, then the L11 could be right up your alley, so to speak. In my opinion, this locomotive may not be the best all-rounder, but she can still be useful in certain circumstances. In any case, I look forward to more LSWR steam locomotives from CW at some point, especially the G16 class 480 tank. For now, I'm going to sign off by rating the L11 class at 7.5 out of 10. And if you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win a Ford car that can do magic tricks. It's the Hocus Pocus Focus. Alternatively, you could win a different Ford car, one that was famous for singing. It's the Core Tina Turner. Thank you. I'm here all week.